I'm going to share my screen with you, or share my iPad screen with you, so there'll be a slight delay while I do that. And you just be patient while the system gets organized.
Okay,
And
Jim, you're ready to go.
You should all be seeing my iPad screen. Okay. Yep. So it said when we told you about the session, we'd be talking about iPadOS 15 and iOS 15. iPadOS is the one for iPads and iOS is the one for iPhones. Most of the changes in this release are actually either common to the iPad and the iPhone or iPad specific. There are a few that are iPad specific. So I'm going to be doing the presentation using an iPad, and we might talk about the differences for the iPhone when we get to the end. Okay, so first thing we'll do is we're actually going to go and I'm going to open up a web browser, and you'll see on here a listing of the things that are there in iPadOS 15. And after the presentation's finished on the AVPALS website, we'll have a little document which has the links to allow you to go and read these web pages if that's what you want to do. But you see when you scroll down, there are lots of pretty pictures that tell you what's in it. And one of the important things is down at the bottom, it has some notes. And these notes tell you whether it will work on your device. They tend to be a little cryptic because I imagine not all of you know whether your iPad has an A12 Bionic chip in it or not. But, the very latest ones do, and the older ones don't have that chip. So there's some features that just won't work on your iPad. And mostly I'm going to look at features which do work on most iPads for two reasons. The iPad that I have doesn't have an A12 Bionic chip in it, so I couldn't very well show you those things. And secondly, I think it's better we do things that most of us can benefit from. On the other things that will be in the document that's on the website is a link to a full list of the features. And I'll just flick over and look at. And you'll see there that there are details about what all the features in iPadOS 15 are. And you can read them at your own leisure. And as I say, the link will be in the document that's up on the website. Now, one of the nice things about this release of iOS is that you don't have to rush into it. If you're currently on an older release, they are going to give you on the general release the ability to choose to just stay with the release you're on and to get security updates. And then when you're ready, you'll be able to go to iPadOS 15 or iOS 15. Also, in the links that I'm going to send you, there are lots of links to features that sound very smart, like the ability to share music with a friend and listen to it at the same time. Unfortunately, that's one of the features that when they came to implement it is apparently not working as well as they would like, so it won't be in the initial release. And so I won't be looking at those features either because they're not in the version that I'm using. Right, so one of the most interesting things in this from an iPad point of view is they've introduced or improved a feature called multitasking. Now, multitasking lets you have two apps open on the iPad screen at the same time. It's been there for a little bit, but it's always been a bit difficult to implement. However, on this release, it's much easier to implement. There are 3 little dots at the top of a screen when you've got an app open. And hopefully you can all see on the screen just now a little red border around 3 little dots at the top of my screen. Can you just give me a thumbs up if you can all see that? Yeah, excellent. So if I click that, it brings up this little menu, and I click the one that's black at the left-hand side, my left hand, and it lets me open another app. So let's open Notes. And now I have Notes and my web browser open side by side. Now, it could be quite handy if I wanted to look at a web page and make some notes on it. I'd be able to have the web page on the left-hand side and type into the notes on the right-hand side. I just open a note up. And I'll go down. So there you are. I've been able to type some notes. I could comment on what I'm going to do with the information on the left-hand side. And it's much easier than flicking between the web browser and taking notes in a note or writing it down on a piece of paper. So side by side is really quite nice. Sometimes you might want to see more of the web page. You'll notice a little line in the middle here. I can drag that to the side and I get more web page, and I've still got a little place to write notes. So really quite neat. If I'm finished, I can go back to the little dots and I can switch now to the full screen for Safari. So there we are. I've gone back to the full screen with Safari and I can go on doing it. If I double click the home button, you'll see that there is my notes that I started on still running in the background. So let's go back to Safari. Now, one of the other things which can be really useful is you could open a second copy of Safari. So I'm going to do that. So down here, open Safari. Safari. I've got 2 copies of Safari, one on each side. And I can open something else in the same window. For example, I could actually open a second copy of the iOS15 preview page, because down at the bottom of that, there's a list of notes that tell me whether I can do something with a particular device. So I can go and roll that to the bottom, which is a bit slow, and have the notes on the side. I think I'll just take that as read that you can understand it. So there we are. We can have 2 things side by side. We could look at the things on one side and read the notes, as you often get at the bottom of a web page, on the other side that relate to the things on the left. Let's go back to full screen. In fact, I'll go back to the main page. And I'll reopen Safari. Now, this is down the bottom where my red dot is a new feature. When I reopen Safari, I can decide which of the Safari versions I was using before I want to open it. So I could go to this one and open the AVPALS one that I had opened previously. Or if I open it again, I can choose to go to the iPadOS review that I was looking at as well. So you've got lots of flexibility, and once you open it, the thing on the bottom, which they call the shelf, disappears and you carry on just as normal. So what it lets you do is switch between tasks without losing the position you're in on the first task that you want to switch out of. And right. Now, I think I've explained it could be useful in Safari. There's another place where it's particularly useful, and that's in Mail. So if I open up Mail and let's say I've opened up a mail message and I want to reply. You notice there's a new feature in iOS 15. The pane that it opens up for me to reply on has come nicely into the middle of my screen. So I might start typing a reply. And someone interrupts me. So in the past, I would have cancelled and saved the draft. However, what I can do is jot it down and have it on the shelf. So I can go back to looking at what I'm doing. And then when I'm ready to resume the email, the reply I'm typing, I can go back, simply click on the shelf and carry on. And I can do that as often as I like. So really useful thing for multitasking. And now with the dots at the top where I'm circling, very easy to use. I can go between full screen. I can even open more apps if I wanted to. Okay. The second major thing which comes in with iOS 15 or iPadOS 15 is a feature that was there in iOS, and that's the app library. So if I switch over here, you'll notice that we have the app library where all of my apps now appear in two places. And the app library lets me search for apps that I might not have on my home screen. And that's I've found to be the most useful feature of it. I'm using it on my iPhone where I now only have one home screen with those apps that I use all the time. You know, for example, I've got the New South Wales check-in app. I've got the wallet that I pay for things with, and they're on the home screen, easy to find. And if I want something that's a bit uncommon, I can flick over to the app library and find it. So how do you do this? Well, if I hold the home screen just with my finger for a bit, just pressed it in a blank area, you'll see a little minus comes up, touch the minus, and I get the option to remove from the home screen. Now, it's still on my iPad, but it's now not cluttering up the thing. And if I look here, there are probably a few things that I wouldn't normally use very much. Find by, which is when you lose your iPhone or your iPad. Hopefully you're not using that every day. Remove it from the home screen. And my home screen's becoming better. Don't use the Measure app every day. And I could keep on doing. When I'm finished, I can touch done, stop jiggling, and I now have a slightly smaller home screen. On my iPhone, because I use it every day, I've gone through and done that and got rid of all of the things that I don't normally use. But if I did want to use the Home app, I come over to the app library type in home, and there we are. There's the app easily available to get and use. Right. As I indicated at the beginning, perhaps not clearly enough, there are lots of features in this new release. And I'm only really in the next 15 minutes or so that remain of the time we take, going to be able to touch on some of them. But one of the ones that stood out for me was one related to FaceTime. I'm sure most of you will remember in our past discussion of FaceTime, we've always said that the one constraint of FaceTime was that you had to have an iPad or an Apple device of some kind. In this release of iOS, they've introduced the ability for you to get someone with a web browser to join into your FaceTime call. So if I go over here to FaceTime, you'll see at the top left-hand corner, there's an option to create a link, which I'm going to do. I just put my cursor over it. It creates a link. I could then send that link to people. Let's say I send it to share.avpals, which is one of the users that we use for iPad in AVPALS. I hit the send button and share.avpals, is now going to get a link. I can also copy the link, and I could put that into an email and share it with people who might want to join the FaceTime call. So very useful, very nice change because I don't know about other people, but most of my family now use iPads, apart from my son who's overseas, who works for a company that doesn't actually use iPads. And so he has to call me if he wants to on a web browser. I haven't used it much yet, but I have run it up and checked that it does work. Right, and now I've going to have a quick look at messages. And most of the changes in iOS 15 are not massive, but some of them make life a lot easier. If I go over and look in my messages app here, I've got there a message that some messages that I've got. And yesterday I sent myself a picture. You see the picture there where the red dot is. And beside the picture, you see a really neat little feature. It's a download. If I click on that, it will ask me if I want to save it to my iCloud photos. And I'll click save. And it takes it to say that it's done, and it's disappeared. I think it's a really nice feature because I don't know about you, but I quite often get emails or pictures sent by my family. I download them, and then a bit later, I can't remember if I've downloaded them, and I download them again. So being able to just click beside it and choose the ones I want is quite a nice feature. And you can save things very easily yourself. So if I go over here, go back into a web browser, and I want to save it to someone, I can try, hey Siri, share this web page with share.avpals.
Send this web link to share.
Send.
Okay, it's sent.
So we'll go over and look in my messages. And you see in my outgoing messages, there's a message with the web page we just looked at. And it's going to go over to that shared AVPALS user, but it could have been someone else in my contacts. So couldn't be any quicker, no typing, nothing involved, just speak to the iPad and off it goes and shares the link. I did the same thing in reverse up here in messages, where I was in shared AVPALS user and it sent me the link. And if I want to open it up, I click on it and there it's opened, which leads me nicely into having a quick look at what's changed in Safari. And Safari has changed a little bit. You look over on, we're in Safari, on the top left-hand corner there, there's a little icon, which if I touch it up, opens up a bar similar to the bar that we used to have when we looked at reading list and history. And down here, it's got, oops, been a bit too quick with my clicks. I'm going to close Safari just to avoid it. We'll go over to Safari. We'll go to shared with you. I'll just do it bits. And there under shared with you are all of the things that have come through in messages where people have been trying to share things with me. And to open them up, all I have to do is go along and click on that icon for the shared with link, and it opens it up for me. You'll notice another new feature in Safari, which I haven't totally worked out whether it's valuable or not, is the ability to have groups of tabs. And they're listed down here, and you can add groups with the plus sign at the top. So I've got a tab group here for shopping that I opened up before when I was looking at a few things. And instead of just having those tabs all along the top of my screen, I've concentrated them into a group, and I can go back and look at the things that I was thinking of buying. We've got another one called training. So quickly I can turn over and there's AVPALS website and the Be Connected website. So two training things that I might want to use. One thing that I should explain though is once we start changing the page that we're in training, it will get updated in the tab. So it doesn't take you back to the beginning of the AVPALS website every time. If I went to Be Connected and went to topics, which you can see is different, went to shopping, shopping looked like it did. But when I've come back to training, I'm at where I am. So it's not like saving notes to a particular web page. It's a live interaction. So you can be working on it with a couple of web pages, investigating something, save them as a group, and come back to them later.
Where did you get this little cursor from, Jim?
Yeah,
this fellow, where did you get it from?
I think I could show you that, but it's a bit off
Okay.
topic.
Okay.
I'm actually using a live mouse with this, and I've got a little adapter plugged into the iPad to make it work.
Okay.
Okay, so we've looked at the change in Safari. There are more changes, but it's just be aware it's going to look a little bit different. Got another couple of things which I would like to show you just for interest. They've improved maps a little bit. So you'll see the symbol looks a bit different. We go and have a look on maps. and you can go and search for locations, nothing different on that. But let's go and have a look at Edinburgh. I'm sure you wouldn't wonder why I would look at Edinburgh. And one of the things they've produced is this lovely ability to fly over. So we're going to go and have a virtual tour of Edinburgh, very briefly.
Wow.
And I can move it around, got the streets named. I can see all the places that I know.
Wow.
This one here with the red dot is the university. And I can potter around to my heart's content in the centre of Edinburgh, feeling somewhat homesick. So, and of course you can do it with other cities as well. But I think it's a very cute feature and it seems to work very well. I'm very impressed with that feature. But you notice that I had a start tour, it will actually give you a little tour and it will, without moving it, fly over showing you the main features of Edinburgh. And it's skimming around over the new town for those who don't know the city. And as it goes, it tells you about some of the things. So that is indeed St. Mary's Cathedral. And I'm sure we're going to go and have a look at the castle or something similar in a minute. Oh, what a good guess that was. Okay. And we'll stop that. Which is quite interesting because I have stopped it on my screen and it's finally caught up sending it over to you. So a nice feature in these days that we can't go anywhere, and certainly one that I might play with a bit in other cities. So how are we for time? We're doing not too badly. And there's some other settings that are worth showing your attention to, and this is just randomly picking settings that caught my eye as being useful. And if we go and have a look at the settings app, there's a feature now in settings in Mail, which I think is a really quite nice setting. So I'm going over here to Mail. It's funny how you can't see things when you're flicking them down. There it is. And in Messages, there's now a feature called Privacy Protection. And there's an option there called Protect Your Mail Activity. And what that does is hides what you are doing with mail from people who are sending you spam. And there's when you get the release, you can read the description, but essentially you get emails where they load down little images and they know that you've opened the email. By invoking this privacy protection, Apple puts layers of indirection in the way, and they don't actually know that you have opened the email. With any luck, that might actually reduce your spam from places that are advertising to you. And I've just turned it on. So from your point of view, it's very easy to turn on, and it'll be interesting to see how well it works. But I'd certainly suggest having a go. So that's the bulk of the stuff that I wanted to show you on the iPad. I'm just quickly going to switch over and share an iPhone with you so that you can see an important change in how the iPhone web browser works. So go to new share. Stop that share. Just going to share again if you're patient with me. And I've now got an iPhone in front of you. And the interesting thing in Safari and the iPhone, which might confuse you to start with, is that the bar, which used to be at the top of the screen, where you put in your web address, where you have your history, has moved to the bottom of the screen. And reading the commentary on this, it's so that young people who manage to type things in with their thumbs will find it easier to type web addresses in with their thumbs. If you're like me, I think you might find it's not actually more convenient at all. I was quite happy with it at the top, but someone at Apple thought that we would like it. And they've also upgraded the weather app. Again, we'll have a look. It's quite cute. And it now has a map of the area. You can look and see what the precipitation levels are like. You can look and see what the temperatures are like. In precipitation, you see along the bottom, it's actually doing a 12-hour forecast. It's like having the television in your pocket. And the final thing that I'm going to talk about before I finish up is the wallet on iPhones. And I know that one of our people might know more about this than me, but in the wallet on the latest release of iOS, if you have an iPhone XS or later, you can actually put keys to open doors and start cars and lock your car, as well as having your credit cards. So a very quick and interesting thing. Okay, I think that's about the length of time we normally talk. And I think it'd be interesting now to open up to question. I'll just stop sharing my screen. Hi, so over to you. Would anyone like to ask questions? You remember